I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Pippa Malmgren. Dr. Pippa was economic advisor to President George Bush and is the founder of H Robotics, which makes drones and digital tools. She also founded DPRM Group, which advised companies, investors and governments on how the economic and geopolitical landscape affects risk and investment. I first saw Pippa speak in 2019 at the Business Book Awards, where she won the overall book, winner of the Business Book Award for the Leadership Lab. And she is an expert in helping audiences to understand investment risks better by connecting the dots between politics, geopolitics, tech, and economics. Ladies and gentlemen, Pippa Malmgren.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, because it's such an interesting time. People are so worried about what does the future hold. So let me open by saying, I think we're going to be fine. Now, that is not to say there isn't an unbelievable amount of damage done, and there's a lot of work that needs doing to get us back to anything like normal. However, what I do not envisage is that we will not have a world economy in future. And I think a lot of people right now are worried about a kind of 1930s style, many years that we never recover from this. And for a variety of reasons, that's not what I see. However, I will say that fundamentally, the first patient with COVID was a human patient, and we did triage on those human patients. The second wave of patients are economic patients and is the economy as a whole. And what we're going to find is that COVID affects those patients in very similar ways. COVID reveals the underlying pre-existing conditions. It shows the businesses that had too much debt, or the economies that had too much debt and insufficient cash on hand. It also creates a similar reaction. COVID often isn't the thing that kills you. It's your body's immune response that kills you. As it overcompensates trying to kill the virus, it also ends up killing you as well. That's what they mean by a cytokine storm. Well, the economy is similar. We see a lot of businesses that shut themselves down. It's not that the market shuts them down. They go, I don't know what my losses are going to be, so I'd rather shut down now than take the risk that my losses in future might be greater. So what we're going to find is that we have to triage the damage. And right now, nobody knows yet how big is that going to be. And we don't really know until we turn the economy back on. Therefore, these questions that get asked, do you think it's a W-shaped recovery? Do you think it's an L-shaped recovery? Is it a V-shaped recovery? I don't know why they're always letters. But I will say this, I don't think that this is linear. I think this is quantum. And we may have well end up in a situation rather like what we had in the 1920s, in the aftermath of the Spanish flu and World War I, which, you know, taken together was much worse damage than what we're talking about here. What was the result? Part of the population became like the Great Gatsby. They had assets, they had means, and they had survived. So they're like, I'm just spending money, free champagne, get me whatever is going. And I don't know how many people you guys know, but I know a lot of people who are in that mentality. They're like, let's just go live a little because we survived this. And they want to go out and spend money. Then there's another group in the 1920s. And remember, in America, 60% of Americans were on the poverty line at that period in history and could not ever quite reestablish their foothold on the economy. And that's the part we have to really be concerned about. How many people have lost their foothold and will need help reestablishing that foothold, and we'll all have to pay attention. But the reason it's important to decide, are you going to be in a linear thought process or a quantum thought process, is because I think that linear thinking causes you to say things in a state problems in a binary way. Will the economy recover or will it not? And we've been in this line of thinking for a long time. This is the same thing that makes people go, will Brexit happen? Will it not? Will Trump win? Will he not? Much smarter to say our focus should not be prediction. Our focus should be preparedness. And preparedness for a multitude of different scenarios we can hardly imagine which of them are going to materialize. And what is much more important is to keep your mind open and exercise your imagination, because recovery from an event like this is not going to be about the normal rules of the game. It's going to be about the imaginative process. And that requires you understanding that this is a little bit like being an athlete, right? You don't say to an athlete, how will you respond if the ball falls into the court in this way? The athlete just responds. And similarly, you got to decide, which game are we in? Are we playing rugby? Are we playing tennis? What kind of economy is this? What sort of rules of the game are there. And I think a lot of those rules are absolutely transformed by these events. For example, prior to this event, the business model was Silicon Valley, get a really high burn rate, hire a whole bunch of people, and you may never make a profit, but eventually someone's going to pay you a lot of money and you'll make your money through an IPO. Is that avenue still likely in the future? It's possible, but it's possible that people put a higher premium on businesses that generate genuine unimpaired cash flow and never need to go to an IPO because they generate so much money. Why would you sell it? Well, if both are possible, then we should be thinking about how could I build a business or be part of an industry that's going to be capable to manage in a variety of different situations. So I think, again, mental imaginary flexibility and skill sets become very important in this environment. Imagination is the key, but by the way, to repurposing businesses, repurposing economies, and repurposing individuals. So your ability to project, who am I? What is my business? Is all about imagination. So I'll give you a couple of examples. I was listening to the story of a pizza company called Stone and Barrel the other day. And they only just got started making fabulous pizzas for pubs and delivering the ingredients to pubs. But then the pubs all shut, and suddenly they were just dead in the water. So what did they do? They went, let's just do home deliveries. Thriving, totally on it. Same thing with lots of other sorts of businesses. I'm in a space that's particularly interesting at this juncture in history because I'm making robotics and digital tools. And that's all about, I'm just going to give you one thing to look at. Put up my phone. It's the ability to say, I want to see my asset. Let's say it's a farm somewhere or it's a mining site. And I want to see it right now. And I want to see all the digital information about that site because I'm stuck at home and I can't get to my mining site in Africa or my agribusiness in Brazil. That's what we do. The move to digitization has happened basically in weeks, what would have required a decade. And that brings huge efficiencies that we should all think about how to take advantage of. And that leads me to a final few comments because I don't want to take too much time. I know we're on a very tight time frame. I'll say this. Digitization was coming anyway. It's just coming a lot faster now. And we can be afraid of it, or we can go back in history and say, you know what, every time we've had more automation, more robotics, more shift in the direction of what digitization represents, actually, we have ended up with higher unemployment every single time. I mean, the first digital robotic tool was introduced in 1804. It was the Jacquard weaving loom. But I look around the world before COVID happened, and what did we see? Record employment everywhere. So I think automation, digitization, robotics they are disruptive. They absolutely mean all of us have to change how we do and what we're doing, and everybody will have to adapt to those changes. However, it does not mean mass unemployment. It just means we got to do things differently. And so the last little thing I'll say about all this is the supply chain has been broken at both ends, demand and supply. Globalization as we had defined it is over. But the new version is already with us. So the old version of globalization was all the jobs and all the manufacturing went to China. The new version is all the jobs and all the manufacturing are going to happen locally everywhere. We're going to see lots of production. So if you ask the question, why didn't we have enough ventilators? Answer, because prior to COVID, every single investor in the world said, I'm not touching hardware. That all goes to China. I'll only invest in software. Now investors are going, actually, if you want ventilators, you have to invest in manufacturing. That's happening. And so this is what I mean by the rules of the game are changing. I will draw your attention. I don't know if there's a way to put up on the site. There's one video I would recommend you watch that'll maybe help you in your own thought process. And it's called The War on Sense Making by a guy called Daniel Schmachtenberger. It's on YouTube, The War on Sense Making. It's about an hour and 45 minutes long. I strongly recommend you take the time because he helps you understand why you can't make sense of anything and therefore get you on a road to a world where you can. So I'll finish. I think we're going to be fine. It's going to be bumpy. It's going to be tricky. It's going to require a lot of imagination, but we're going to be okay. I'll finish.
Thank you so much indeed, Pippa.